We will not wait to take the fight to Donald Trump and the oligarchy. We will not wait. We will not wait to abolish ICE and pass Medicare for all. We will not wait to put an end to the politics of the past, to get big money out of our politics, and to reject corporate PACs and APAC. We believe that fundamental change can and will happen if we fight for it. If we organize and show no fear in standing up for what's right. That is the message that Denver has sent to both parties, to Donald Trump, and to the entire country.
All right, guys, so we have some more exciting news coming out of Colorado as yet another Democratic Socialist candidate just won their race for Congress. So that was Milat Kuros. She just defeated Diana DeJette, who is an almost 30-year incumbent, and she's the centrist corporate establishment Democratic candidate who is also a big, supporter of Israel. And one of the big through lines that you're seeing in a lot of these Democratic primary races is the issue of Israel and the genocide in Gaza and, the Israeli lobby like AIPAC having an outsized influence in our politics. But more broadly, as she said in that victory speech, is that the voters are just tired of waiting, right? The message from, the establishment Democrats was always, well, we believe in good things and we oppose bad things, and all you have to do is vote blue no matter who, except when it's a lefty. But all you have to do is just get us in Congress, and we promise we're going to start to think about ways that we might change the system, except they're fundamentally just status quo managers. And the status quo is what got us here in the first place. And the establishment Democrats don't actually oppose the Republicans in any kind of meaningful way. They don't curb Donald Trump's power in any kind of meaningful way. And a lot of them are the ones who are voting for these horrible policies, like giving more funding to ICE and more funding to the military. And most of these people, if they're not bought by Israel, they're still bought by large tech companies or the healthcare industry. And so they oppose universal healthcare. But I think that what's really beautiful about the moment that we're living through right now is that the term socialism, right? It's not the boogeyman that it used to be. This isn't the 1960s anymore. This isn't the 1980s anymore. People are smarter. And, when you look at what the policy prescription is of the progressive left, of the Democratic Socialists, and they say, hey, look, we want to tax the ultra wealthy and redistribute that wealth towards, programs that actually help people. We want to give people universal health care. We want to give people paid family leave and paid sick leave. And we want to raise student loan debt. Most voters are like, yeah, that makes sense. One of the other arguments that you see all the time is that well, you've never seen socialism actually work. Everywhere it's been implemented, it's failed. But that's also not true, right? For example, in Spain, there is a company, it's called the Mondragon Corporation, and it's a worker-owned co-op, which at the root of socialism, that's really one of the biggest pillars of it, is that the workers own the means of production. So at Mondragon, the workers are actually the ones who vote on who their managers are, right? They're the ones who vote on who gets to be an upper level executive. One of the other things is that they're capped on the upper level management is capped on how much money they can make. And I believe it's only 8 times what the lowest paid employee makes. So for example, if the lowest paid employee makes $10 an hour, the CEO is only going to make $80 an hour. Whereas here in the US, the average CEO compensation is more than 350 times what the lowest paid worker makes. And just so that people know, Mondragon is not a small company. If I remember right, they're I want to say they're like the 6th or 7th largest company in Spain. They employ over 70,000 people. They've been around for over 70 years. Like, this is a very, very successful company, and it's a blueprint for how other companies could function. And we always talk about, like, democracy, right? Oh, we believe in democracy, but, like, this is basically just democratization of the workplace. And so I always love that argument that, like, well, yeah, socialism's great until you actually try it, but it never works. Or socialism's great until you run out of other people's money. But that's just a fundamental misunderstanding of what socialism is. In fact, it's really funny. Fox News did this, like, street interview after all of the Zoran Mamdani-backed candidates won their race in New York, and they tried to do gotchas with a bunch of voters in New York, and this is what that looked like.
Do you feel comfortable sharing who you voted for?
I vote for Brad Lander.
I voted pretty much down the line for those socialist candidates.
If you had the opportunity, would you vote for a socialist?
100%.
Why?
Because it's better for the people.
No one even knows what socialism means. Okay, no one knows what capitalism means. They're just like all buzzwords. We're talking about like real issues on the ground here. That's what Zoran is all about.
What is one thing you would like to see happen tomorrow to make us more socialist?
Everybody has health care. Everybody has free education.
People understand that, like, the system is just broken. One person owns more wealth than the bottom half of the country. That's a broken system. When people can't afford their groceries, that's a broken system. When people can't afford healthcare, that's a broken system. And all the DSA people are saying, all the, the progressive lefties are saying is like, look, we actually want to fix this system. But in order to fix it, you can't do tweaks around the edges. Like, that's been the whole, like, prescription of the establishment Democrats for at least since, Bill Clinton, right? The whole, like, third way, I'm not quite a Democrat, but I'm not quite a Republican, and we believe in, like, this incremental approach. They like to bill themselves as pragmatic politicians. One of my favorite quotes of all time is actually from Ron Placone back when he was on the Jimmy Dore show, before Jimmy went completely insane. Ron Placone now is like, he does his own thing. He's a stand-up comedian, and he's also a pretty regular contributor on Status Coup. But he said, there's nothing pragmatic about an incremental approach to a catastrophic problem. And that's exactly right. And that's what you have in most of these corporate Democrats now. It's like, we don't want to fundamentally change anything because the system that got us to where we are now is benefiting us. But, like, changing that system would mean that, like, it would change the power structure, and they don't like that. And so that's why they fight so hard. And I've said this multiple times. The establishment Democrats would rather lose to Republicans than win with progressives, win with democratic socialists. But you're starting to see this now. This is like the new blueprint for how Democrats win. And the biggest thing is, like, you have to run on real policy, right? People don't want tweaks around the edges anymore.
Imola, I'll stick with you for a moment, actually, because you're getting a lot of attention online for this response on MSNBC where you said, quote, we have socialism already. It's in the roads we drive on, the schools we send our kids to, the fire stations we call upon. I'm just asking that we extend that to security, to our healthcare, to our housing, to our nutritional food, to our higher education, so that we're actually meeting the basic needs of everyday working families in this country. And what's so interesting about that is I think it gets to this definition of what democratic socialism is and what the DSA is selling when it sells democratic socialism, because I think a lot of people would say, oh, the roads you drive on, the schools, that's sort of like normal democracy. This is like the product of a normal democratic system. But if you could break down a bit as to why you see those as positive examples of what democratic socialism looks like, I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single one of the things that I mentioned, whether it was the roads or fire stations or, our public schools, those are specifically, government-run programs because we know that private ownership of any one of those things ends up, leaving working families behind, ends up leaving, when we had private fire stations, there were a lot of poor working families that did not get the security of being able to call on a fire station if their house, was on fire. And so the same thing should go for our healthcare right now. If you are a wealthier person, you are more likely to live multiple years longer than a person who is poor and is working class and doesn't have access to that same kind of quality healthcare. What we're talking about is injecting, real morals and ethics into what kind of programs do we think our government should be responsible for? What kind of things do we believe that no one should be left behind on, whether or not they've been born into a family that has the money to take care of it for themselves? And I think that should extend to our healthcare, our housing, our access to nutritional food, and our access to higher education. Most especially now as we're embarking on this new era of AI, which at best is going to be a complete change in our labor economy and is going to change the way we look at work entirely in our society. And at worst is a risk to humanity at large. And so we have to be prepared for what that world looks like. And that means meeting people's most basic needs. That's what democratic socialism delivers on.
So you're seeing more and more insurgent lefty candidates win. And I think that this is a great thing for the Democratic Party, despite what the establishment Democrats and especially the Republicans think. Pushing the party further to the left is the way that you're going to beat Trump and beat the Republicans. There is no incremental approach to dealing with climate change, right? There's no incremental approach to dealing with fascism. You can't halfway agree with a fascist. And I think the reason that these candidates are resonating with the voters is because they're saying hey, look, we know that it's broken. We know that the system's broken and we want to shake it up. We don't want to do tweaks around the edges. We want to do a page one rewrite. And that's super exciting to see. Guys, if you made it this far, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subbed, click the bell as well. That way YouTube will notify you the next time I upload another one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.